Good morning, everybody. So, dear Michal, dear Lubomir, dear candidates, dear friends. First, I must say I'm very happy to be in Prague, for different reasons, by the way. First, because Prague is a marvelous city. It's one of the, I would say, historical, cultural jewel of Europe. And going through the streets of Prague, you really feel Europe. You feel to be in Europe, in the best part of Europe. But also, I'm coming from Luxembourg. And there is, over the centuries, some special feeling between Prague, the Czech Republic, and Luxembourg. So, personally, I feel a bit at home also here, though it's crazy because it's hundreds of years back. But now we are in a very special situation before this election. It's first a very important election. You know, politicians always say, well, this election is the most important. But this is really an election of special importance because it takes place at a moment where Europe is confronted with big, big challenges. The economic challenge, the social challenge, the environmental challenge, and you know it better than anybody else, the challenge of war, which we thought was not anymore possible on our continent. And that's why it's so important to have a strong Europe, a Europe people believe in, a Europe where people have the feeling that the European institutions really take care of their concerns. And that's a Europe which is built by social democrats. That's a Europe that puts values first, as we as social democrats have always put the human values, human rights, and democracy first. And I'm speaking here in a city, in a country with a very long, strong social democratic tradition, and with a very strong democratic tradition. And I think that, as it was already said, it would be a mistake not to have a social democrat or social democrats in the strongest, I hope so at least, in the strongest party grouping in the next European Parliament. The Czechs have to be there. They have to make their voice heard. Dear friends, first let me also greet particularly Vladimir Spidla. You know, I see you every day, or nearly, when I'm in Brussels and go to my office, because there are all the pictures of all the commissioners for social affairs. And I always look also at your picture. And I know that you were a great social affairs commissioner, and I thank you for the work you have done, also bringing Czech Republic into the European Union. Thank you very much. 20 years now. And I would say it is a success story. It's a success story in terms of the integration of the Czech Republic into the European Union, in terms of participation of the Czech Republic in the internal market. It has improved your economy. It has strengthened your economy. It has brought prosperity, but I fully agree, it has not brought equal prosperity to all the citizens. And this is the big challenge, Because Europe is, above all, not just the promise of peace between its members. It's also the promise of shared prosperity for everybody. And we are talking a lot about the internal market. And it's clear, countries like the Czech Republic or the countries like mine, but also the bigger countries, what they need is, obviously, a strong internal market. That's why, by the way, Jacques Delors, his vision was to strengthen the European economy in face of other competitors by creating this open space called internal market, where goods, people, but also capital was flowing free. But the internal market is not a purpose for itself. The internal market is, first, the purpose is to strengthen Europe's economy in international competition, but at the end, the purpose is shared wealth between citizens, better social protections for all citizens, in a society of equality, a society where children are not in poverty, where old people are not living in poverty, where young people get a real prospect of a good future. And here we still have a way to go. And that's why Jacques Delors said this famous formula, this famous sentence: you don't fall in love with an internal market. It's true. And to make it a success, to make this economic perspective a success, we need a strong social dimension. And Vladimir knows it very well. It's not easy. It has not been easy in the past to strengthen this European social dimension. I say this time it was a bit different, because we managed finally to have progress, important progress, on the social side, in the social field. And I give my first answer to your first question. Yes, it's about wages. Without fair wages, there is no fair society, and work has to be valued. And that's why the Social Democrats imposed a directive for adequate minimum wages, but also for good and strong and solid collective bargaining. That's about wages. And we managed it. But that's not the end of the story, you know, dear friends. It's a beginning. Because now it's about implementation. It's about implementation in all the member states, of adapting minimum wages to make sure that minimum wages help people to have a decent life and not work and be at the same time in poverty. This is unacceptable. And that's what we have to achieve now. And that's also a duty for all governments, including the Czech government. But it's also about collective bargaining, because we do not want a society, we do not want an economy where everybody is at a minimum. We want good wages, because we want quality jobs. And we want high productivity in the economy. And that means that we have fair and good and solid collective bargaining. And you know, as Social Democrats, we are very much linked to the trade union movement. We have the same roots. We have the same objectives. We have to work together. And that's why this Commission and myself have fought very strongly for collective bargaining rules, where trade unions get the right to negotiate, where they get the right to know what should and could be obtained, transparency, transparency, information, and the freedom for trade unions. This is unfortunately, in many countries, not anymore a given thing. And that's what we Social Democrats are fighting for democracy, for a social market economy, for a democracy where working people have their say. That's what we want, and that's what we need for a strong Europe. Now, coming to the second question you asked me. Yes, the wages have to be fair, and there is no reason, by the way, that the gaps existing between some parts of Europe with the most modern factories, with the highest level of technology, the wages are X% lower than in other parts of Europe, though the cost of living is similar. This is not acceptable, and that's why we have convergence. We need convergence. We need social convergence. We need wage convergence. But that also creates responsibilities. Responsibilities also on the side, not only of the governments, but also on the side of business, of employers. And that indeed means that the money which is gained in one country, like the Czech Republic, where there are a lot of very profitable businesses, has largely also to be reinvested in this country to make the development, to make the companies, to make the technology better, and to make the competitiveness of this country with these companies better. So this is the response. Yes, it's not just about taking the dividends, it's about encouraging investment in the country where the profit is made. Now, the third one is about energy. I think this is really a very important topic because we have gone through an energy crisis. And we have gone through an energy crisis first because we noticed that we are over dependent from a non-reliable producer. We have been blackmailed, we have been put under pressure by the Russians, and that's why Europe has to gain its autonomy in the energetic field. That's the meaning. That's the meaning also of a just transition. That's the meaning of a program the Commission launched through Repower EU. And this is first the need for not just security, energy security, which has been threatened at different moments. It's also about the cost of energy. You cannot have a competitive industry, a competitive economy without reliable energy sources and cost-effective energy. And this has to be built now in Europe on a basis where Europe provides its own energy security. And this is also about a lot of investments. Now we know that the climate transition is a complex process. And I know also that the Czech Republic is facing real challenges because you are among still the coal producer countries in Europe. There are still a few thousand people working in coal. You still provide a large part of your energy through coal. This is centered upon in a region of, I remember well, of Bohemia and Moravia. And this means first, yes, we have to phase out coal production because coal is not the energy source of the future because of the global warming. But we have to do that in a responsible way, not leaving behind the workers not leaving behind the regions. And that means that we have to make an effort. And that's why, by the way, my colleague, another social democratic commissioner, Ferreira, is managing the transition fund, the transition, to invest in these regions, to allow people to find new jobs, to see that new activities come up. And I say, as a candidate for the Commission, these transitions of regions, especially affected by the outgoing coal industry, we have to make sure that these regions will not be forgotten, and that the workers of these regions will not be forgotten, that we build with them a new future, especially also for the young people living in this region. This is a strong commitment, and I take it. And by the way, this means also that we have to take care of energy poverty, because you have mentioned that. Still a lot of Europeans, not just in the Czech Republic, but also in many parts of the European Union, due to the energy crisis, more than 10 or 15% of Europeans have not the money to heat their homes. They have to choose, will I eat or heat? This is a choice which is just in our rich Europe unacceptable. And that's why we have, on the first hand, to support the most vulnerable households, not to be obliged to make this choice, especially as energy prices are still quite high. But we certainly have to help them to find other sources, invest in their buildings, invest in their homes, having more efficient energy systems, switching to renewables. And that's the big challenge for Europe now, to find new energy sources. That's the transition, energy sources mainly based also on renewables, what means zero or very close to zero emission. This is not just an obligation, it's at the end a win-win for Europe, and it's a win-win for all the European citizens. That's what we have to do. But doing that, that's, I think, the difference with all the conservatives who believe in through the markets. But the markets will not entirely resolve this problem. The point is, we have to bring in that transition the social dimension. It's the green heart with the red heart together. We have to combine social and ecological and climate together, because we think that there is only a fair transition if people, if citizens, if young people are really the winner of this transition. My dear friends, I finish with one aspect which is especially for your country and your historical experience. And I can tell you, I was 15 years old in '68. And you know what happened in '68 here in Prague. And in the center of Luxembourg, there's a place called Jan Palach. Jan Palach. And this hurt us all. And so we know the value of democracy. We know, and we know the value of independence. We know the value of human life. And that's now what we have to fight for. Inside the European Union, where we have a tendency of political forces questioning not just Europe, but finally the democratic Europe, our democracy, our values, the equality of women and men, the rights of all minorities. Yes, also creating fear, fear against migration, as if tomorrow we would have been an invasion. We are not the party of fear, because the only project they have, the only solution they have, is fear. Ask them, what are your solutions? Yes, the solution is going backwards to nationalism. And we know, and you know best, by the way, best, because if we go a bit backwards in your history, we know what it cost Czechoslovakia in 1938, what nationalism and fascism means for countries. And that's why we have, this election is also about democracy, about defending our values in the internal context, now against the right-wing, extreme right-wing parties, and the tendency of conservatives finally to ally with these extremists, to put into question these values. We have seen now in Poland that this new government is now trying to come backwards to a more democratic situation, to re-establish women's rights and so on. And we know how difficult this is. But obviously it's also a question of our security from the outside. And you are closer. You have received hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian refugees, mostly women and children. And I, if I may, as a commissioner, as a European, I want to thank the Czech Republic very officially, very clearly, for the support, for the integration, for the chances and the opportunities you have given to these people. This shows the grandeur of your nation. It shows also the deep humanity feelings of the Czech people. Thank you for that, what you have done. And this means now, dear friends, and I finish with that, yes, we have to provide for our own security, because we do not know what the plans are after Ukraine if this foolish guy in Moscow won the war in Ukraine, which by no way he should do. That's why we have to support Ukraine, because we have to provide for our own security, the security of democratic Europe. And that's why, obviously, and I say it as a social democrat, not with enthusiasm, but with realism, we have to invest more in our security. We have to invest more in our defense. But this should not be done, as some people now try to tell us. Well, if we invest more in defense, it should be at the expense of social solidarity in our society. This is a way which cannot be gone. This is a way where, on the one hand, we would increase our external security and weaken our internal cohesion and security. This is not the way Europe should handle its major issue of security and defense. We have to invest there, but it should not weaken our social investment and our social welfare, which brings our society together and which, by the way, we still have to improve, especially on a continent where nearly 100 million of people are still at risk of poverty. So we have to do both. So, dear friends, thank you for receiving me. And I stand by your list, I stand by your candidates, and I'm confident that after the 9th of June, I will welcome in Brussels a good social democratic delegation in the European Parliament. Thank you very much.